Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's 2023 repaving meeting for the Hunter Mill and Providence districts. My name is Zach Desjardins. I work for Fairfax County Department of Transportation, and I want to welcome you to the meeting tonight. Before we begin, I'd like to review some guidelines so that everyone can participate and get the most out of this session. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to you on YouTube, then link 2023 repaving program webpage. Microsoft Teams does offer a live captioning service. You can find that by clicking on the three dots and choosing Turn on Live Captions. Once the presentation is complete, we'll begin a question and answer session during which participants can ask questions about the presentation. The chat feature has been disabled for this meeting, so we will be not taking questions via the chat. If you're on the phone, we will have instructions about how to ask questions at the end of the presentation. We also encourage you to submit your comments to today's meeting using the online feedback forum at the bottom of each repaving program webpage. You can provide it written there, as well as you can give us a call at the number on our last slide. We'll have addresses for you at the end of the presentation. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce Supervisor Alcorn from Hunter Mill District to open this meeting and give some brief remarks.
Thank you very much, Zach. Appreciate it. And I'm thank you all who are participating in tonight's meeting. In my office in Hunter Mill, and I'm sure it's true for Supervisor Palchik in Providence, we get a good number of emails, phone calls about this issue. So the challenging fact is that we have more streets that need to be repaved, and I know we'll be hearing about some of this tonight, than the state has resources to do it. So, but I want to thank everybody for participating tonight, for letting us know where you have issues, where there are streets that need attention, and want to thank the good folks at our Department of Transportation and also VDOT for all your support for this, and look forward to the presentation. I'm actually triple booked tonight, so I'll be on for a little while, but as always, feel free to follow my office, or if you're in Providence District, Supervisor Palchik's office for any additional information. So thank you, Zach.
Okay, thank you. So first on the agenda is my colleague Steve Welch at the Virginia Department of Transportation is going to go over the 2023 repaving plan. So I will stop sharing my screen for him to share his screen. Go ahead, Steve.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay, first of all? Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep, all good, Steve. I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Just want to make sure before I get going, I'm going to share my screen. Give me one moment. All right. Can you see a title page with VDOT on the header?
Yes.
All right. All right, well, first of all, everyone, I'm Steve Welch. I'm with the Virginia Department of Transportation. I'm the Assistant District Administrator for Northern Virginia District. I oversee transportation and land use, Fairfax and Arlington counties. And tonight, I'm just going to go over our 2023 paving plan, which has been in the works for approximately a year. The construction season has started, and here tonight to present how we got to where we are and what'll happen this season. So, all right, as I go through this, let me make a little adjustment here. So, just a quick overview of the agenda of several things that I'm going to go over tonight. I won't read through every one of these, but generally, people want to know how are roads selected for paving and what paving budget is, and which roads are getting paved overall. So we'll be getting through that as we go through the presentation. So first of all, I just want to kind of give the big picture. Up in Northern Virginia, we have over 14,142 lane miles in NOVA, which comprises of Fairfax, Prince William, Loudoun, and Arlington counties. And then you can kind of see how many lane miles there are around the state for us to maintain. In Northern Virginia district, Fairfax County comprises of over 51% of those lane miles, the 14,200. Loudoun County makes up about 25% of it, Prince William 22%, and Arlington County 2%. The reason Arlington County's is only 2% is because they maintain most of their roads, where we maintain the interstates and some of the very large primaries. So as I mentioned early on, we're already started into the paving construction season. We've had a very, as we know, very mild winter, and that also allowed us to get started a little bit earlier this year in March, and we're actually catching up on a couple that got caught up from last year here in April, March and April. And the season goes through till about October. We stop milling around early October so that we can finish up paving and then have enough warm weather after that to put down any pavement markings that are necessary to finish up the projects. But every year we go through this process. It's an annual process. Right now, we're already gathering information for the next year. And during the summer and fall, we'll review that data. We'll start setting up contracts and schedules preliminarily. And eventually, during the late fall, we'll advertise those contracts to contractors for bids. We'll close out the prior year contracts as well. And then during the winter, as the bids are received, we'll evaluate those and make sure there's no anomalies. We'll execute the contracts and then give notice to proceed, typically right around early March. So one of the questions we get a lot of is, how are roads selected for paving? It's not something that's who calls the most, or which street calls the most, or which group of citizens. It's very much a technical analysis, and I want to explain that a little bit. We look at pavement conditions, traffic volumes. We do look at whether or not there's any VDOT or county or city close in proximity anyway, projects that may be happening that we don't want to pave a road only to have it cut into afterwards because of a utility or a construction project or a stormwater project. The other thing we do is we try to look at grouping projects for economies of scale. It takes a lot of energy and money to load up equipment onto trailers, then move them around and unload the equipment and get it ready for doing the work. Another thing we look at is trying to do an entire neighborhood. In some cases, we'll do the main street if there's money left over after doing a neighborhood, but an abutting neighborhood perhaps needs the work done, but there's not enough money, then we'll maybe try to do the main street through the neighborhood. And of course, then feedback also that we get from our maintenance crews. So how do we collect the data? We use what are called Aeron trucks. They're automatic road analyzers. It's very technical, but has a lot of equipment on it. It takes photo images and runs analyses to look at pavement distress, roughness, texture, rutting, does digital scanning, takes measurements and imagery and video, so that our infrastructure team can go back and look at some place that may show up as really bad or something strange. They can go back and look into that data that's all recorded from these trucks. And we have contracts with the makers and users of these trucks, and they drive the roadways and record it for us every year. So how often do we do it? Annually, we do this on the interstate roads and all primary roads, and then all of our high volume secondary roads. High volume secondary roads are those that have an average annual daily traffic of 3,500 vehicles per day or greater. Low volume secondary are those that are less than that 3,500, and we do those about every 5 years. Essentially, we get 20% every year because there's so many of them. And so we get the 100% every 5 years. Your low volume secondary roads are typically your neighborhood roads. So as a criteria, as we set in the state, is that we have to meet what's called our critical condition index of 60%. That's the borderline between fair and poor. Obviously, if money were no object whatsoever, we would always shoot for excellent or good at least. But budget and available funds do come into play, and we have to set a target of expectation for ourselves and for the community. So we have a 60% CCI of greater as being that target, depending upon the type of roadway. And you can kind of see the pictures here of the varying conditions, how they may look. I will say that when it comes to neighborhood roads, over 40% are considered very poor to poor. So across the state, we're divided up into 9 districts, from Bristol across to Stanton to Northern Virginia, which is boxed out in this diagram here. Over on the left, you'll see interstate. We have a target of 82% CCI, primaries, 82, both high volume then low volume, 75%. Then our high volume secondaries, we have an 82% target. And then our low volume or neighborhood streets, we have a target of 60%. Right now, we're at 57.2% or below that point, and also below that point in the secondaries for high volume secondaries. So our goal is to shoot for keeping those above those targeted condition ratings. Again, and also an equation of the budget available. How do we do that? There's 3 types, really mainly 3 types of treatment that we do. The top layer up is to provide a preventive maintenance. For lack of better comparison, I equated to the same what many of us would do with sealing our driveways. We do a slurry seal, latex, and a chip seal. We do patching and crack seals, and that's to provide preventive maintenance for allowing that pavement to last 2 to 5 more years until we can get to repaving that road. Then what we call plant mix is what everyone would know as milling it, then overlaying it, and we do that from anywhere from 2 inches to up to 4 inches deep, depending upon how bad the condition of the current paving is. In extreme cases, and there are roads that are 70 years old, let's say, that have been paved over multiple times, that originally was perhaps a gravel road and even at one time a horse path road, believe it or not, that goes back a long way. In some of those cases, we will actually excavate the entire roadway and reconstruct it. That rarely happens, but it does happen in segments in some places where we have real problems with the roadway. So every year, this is one big question is, what do we have as far as our budget goes? Our 2023 budget for this year is $123 million towards paving in Northern Virginia District. You can see that that's somewhat on plane with what we've been the last 5 years. It is slightly up from last year, but with the cost of inflation or the impact due to inflationary costs, it's a little greater cost to us in terms of cost per lane mile. So last year we were able to do a little over 1,000 lane miles. This year we're at 954. One big difference is that we are applying over 80% of our budget on the secondary roadways, mainly on the neighborhood roads. So as you saw earlier, the condition ratings for interstate and primary, we have achieved our goals and managed to maintain them, and we're still playing catch up on all the secondaries from the period of time in the late 2000s and into the early 2010s when we went through a bit of a recession. So our infrastructure and maintenance teams overall have determined that about 43% of our low volume secondary roads or neighborhood roads have a combined critical or index rating or CCI of in the 30s and 40s, which is considered very poor, which is why we're continuing again this year to, as we have the last several years, to put a big emphasis on our neighborhood roads. At current funding levels, we're able to pave about 6% of our roads each year. And we continue to try to catch up the best we can, identifying which are the worst and taking care of the worst first and working our way upward as we can. Of course, anytime there are any safety issues, we can always be contacted to deal with potholes or patching or some other problem that may be in the roadway that we will always address. One thing that we have that's very unique, and I'll bring that up here shortly, but I just have a screenshot of it here in front of you, and that is we have a interactive GIS map. This is a screenshot of roads in Northern Virginia district and beyond that this year are getting repaved. In the legend, you'll see that there's what's shown in red means that it's scheduled for this season. If it's in green, it's in progress already, and you can see there are several areas that are in green. And in a couple cases, or a few cases, there are some that have already actually been completed, again, because of the good weather. And shortly, I'm going to jump to that to show you how to use that map. So when we go out and repave roadways, it has existing pavement markings, and typically our contracts are set up to replace in kind. That is, we put back the double yellow center lines if that's what exists, the white edge lines if that's what exists, whatever may be there. In the second bullet here, we sometimes do make some minor adjustments to add edge lines. We may adjust a crosswalk slightly if it wasn't quite perpendicular in the roadway. We may add what are called high visibility crosswalks, which are the kind of bar-like crosswalks that you see as opposed to two lines going across the roadway. And then we'll also do some things where we have the ability to do it. That is, if a median, for example, is all paved, we may, and it's a shared left turn from both directions, we may lengthen one left turn over another to provide for more storage for that left turn lane. But one of the other things we have done is, beginning about 10 years ago, we have partnered with Fairfax County Department of Transportation. During this process is the best time to address the needs for and desires for on-road bike lanes, whether they're shared lanes, standard bike lanes, or buffered bike lanes. In addition to that, new crosswalks and adding high visibility crosswalks where maybe an existing crosswalk before was what we call a two-bar crosswalk, two lines going across the roadway. And one of the newer things that we've been doing the last couple of years is marking our lanes slightly more narrow from 12 feet to 11 feet, typically to the outside. And that does show statistically to help to slow down drivers a little bit, because it makes the drivers feel a little bit more controlled while they're in their travel lane. And it also sets up for some future work that could be done with providing median refuge and future crossings. So that's overall, if you at any time have a problem with a roadway, a pothole, or deteriorated pavement, or some problem like that, you can reach out at the website shown on my screen at my.vdot.virginia.gov, or call the number shown on the screen, 1-800-4ROAD, to let us know about a problem, and we'll contact our maintenance department, have them go check it out, and try to address it. So for the second part of the presentation, I wanted to jump back to show you how to use what I showed earlier was a static image of the 2023 paving program. So give me one moment to change up screens here. All right, can you see my screen with sort of an image of what I showed you earlier? Okay, good. All right, so this is, I'm going to back out a little bit. You can kind of see this is all of Northern Virginia with the Loudoun Dulles Airport, Loudoun County line over here, Prince William County line down that way. So looking in the center in the Hunter Mill Providence area, and kind of zoom in a little bit and see Vienna. And you can kind of see where some roads or neighborhoods in particular are going to be repaved, as well as some of our interstates and a couple of our primaries. And you can see several blue that we've actually already completed. But one thing I wanted to show everyone about this map is that everyone can use it. It's on the link. If you have any questions about your neighborhood, and I'm going to focus in on this one right here for the moment called Poplar Heights next to Westwood Park off of Shreve Road, what you can do is you can click on that roadway and it brings up a dash and it'll show you the project manager name from VDOT. It'll show you their phone number and it'll give you their email address and what contractor they're using to perform the work. And one thing I want to explain is our contractors are given not a certain week or even a certain month that the work has to be done. They're given a period of time. In other words, from notice to proceed in early or to mid-March through maybe August of this year, depending upon which neighborhood it is. So if you have a question about when they're coming to your neighborhood, or during the process of them paving, there's an issue or question that you have as a citizen, you can call this up and you can write an email to that project manager and they will circle back and answer your questions. So that's pretty much it. This link can be found in the presentation, which I'll be providing to both supervisors in PDF forms, so they'll be able to post it on their newsletter. And at the end, I'll be glad to answer any questions. In the meantime, I'll back out and stop sharing.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
All righty. Okay, and I should also add that the link to that paving map is also on our repaving webpage as well. So you can find that, and if you're curious about where things are happening. Okay, so for proposed striping modifications in Hunter Mill and Providence districts, as Steve mentioned, this is a collaboration between VDOT and FCDOT. We'd like to try to provide collaborate to improve traffic safety for all users. We review at FCOT, we review the draft paving plan and look for opportunities for improvements, typically new crosswalks and bike lanes. VDOT will develop the striping and signage plans. And then Fairfax County leads the public engagement, such as meetings like this, and as well as coordinates with each district supervisor. VDOT also looks for substandard curb ramps, and whatnot to improve accessibility. And then Fairfax County DOT actually does the signage. So if we do a new bike lane or a crosswalk or a road diet, Fairfax County helps install the signage for those. So in terms of crosswalks, we look for busy pedestrian crossings without crosswalk markings to see if it meets a VDOT warrant. In order to mark that as a crosswalk, VDOT often will upgrade existing crosswalks, as Steve mentioned, from standard to those two bar pairs to high visibility, such as the one in the photo to the right. I think they look like piano keys. So it's a lot easier to see a person using the crosswalk, particularly at night. We also look for key crosswalks or future enhancements, such as adding pedestrian refuge islands. We also try to repurpose some underutilized road space. So many of our roads in Fairfax County were built with wider than needed travel lanes or simply have too many lanes, which leads to safety issues such as speeding and inattentive driving. Repaving provides an opportunity to quote unquote right size the travel lanes and even provide new bike lanes and turn lanes to improve safety for everyone at a very little incremental cost. It's the bet. During repaving is the cheapest and most efficient way to do those kind of projects. We typically at signalized intersections, the traffic capacity is typically maintained and legal on-street parking is usually maintained. And this process also helps us build out our planned bicycle network. For example of this traffic calming effect, down in Mason District on Annandale Road, the lanes are quite wide, so people could speed relatively easily. But after we were able to add bike lanes during the repaving process, the speeds were able to decrease. So we have three types of bicycle facilities in Fairfax County. First are the shared lane markings. We're not really proposing any of those tonight. We have the standard bike lanes, which you can see in the middle picture. And then we also have buffered bike lanes, which provide a little buffer space between parked cars to make it a little more comfortable for people to ride. In terms of types of bicycle riders, we have the strong and fearless, enthusiastic, confident. But combined 10% of our potential bicyclists are primarily will use standard bike lanes. But a lot of folks, about half of potential cyclists, are interested but concerned. And they prefer trails and buffered bike lanes. And so there are benefits to adding bicycle infrastructure besides just benefiting people biking. It helps reduce the crossing distance for people crossing the street. Bike lanes add a buffer between pedestrians and moving traffic, making it more comfortable and safe place to walk. And bike lanes help reduce noise because it discourages people from speeding in the narrower roads. They also will improve visibility in travel lanes, make it easier to exit a driveway or onto a side street. So for Hunter Mill District, we're proposing bike lanes on Glade Drive between Reston Parkway and Sunrise Valley Drive. So right now, if you go out today, there are 2 wide travel lanes and there are 2 parking lanes. There's a sidewalk along the north side of Glade Drive, except between Coquina Drive intersections. There's also a sidewalk on the south side, except between Green Range Drive and Rosedown Drive. And there are no on-street bicycle facilities, but there is an existing trail at the Reston Parkway intersection. We propose to add bike lanes by narrowing the travel lanes between Sunrise Valley Drive and Reston Parkway. It provides a bicycle connection between the side path on Sunrise Valley Drive, the Fairfax County Parkway Trail, which stops just a block from the side path, as well as the turquoise trail down at the southern end at Reston Parkway. All legal street parking will be unchanged. We also proposing to add a crosswalk at the intersection of Monroe Street and Monroe Manor Drive. This connects 2 neighborhoods to each other, as well as connecting to a playground, as well as Frying Pan Farm Park. There's actually no crosswalk on Monroe Street south of the intersection at Frying Pan Road. And again, this is for Hunter Mill. For Providence District, we have 4 potential bike lanes. As Steve mentioned earlier, there's some economies of scale, and this is one of the reasons why all of these streets are slated to be repaved. So Executive Park Drive today runs between Prosperity Avenue and it runs to the Red Cross building. There are 2 wide travel lanes and 2 parking lanes. There are sidewalks on both sides, and there's no on-street bicycle facility. We're proposing to add bike lanes by narrowing the travel lanes and repurposing an underused parking lane. This provides a nice east-west bicycle connection parallel to Arlington Boulevard. And if you're wondering why we were ending the bike lanes at the Red Cross building, the street narrows to the minimum width for travel lanes, so we could not fit bike lanes anywhere further down the street. On Gatehouse Road between Telstar Court and Gallows Road, right now there are two wide travel lanes and one parking lane. There are sidewalks on both sides, and there's no on-street bike facilities. We're proposing to add bike lanes by narrowing the travel lanes and repurposing the underused parking lane in front of the now former Innova office building. There are approximately 6 on-street spaces that are there today. This provides an east-west bicycle connection, kind of parallel to Arlington Boulevard. It connects to the Gallows Road side path. And then to the right is a photo of Mary Lee Drive, and it shows there 2 buffered bike lanes and then 2 travel lanes. Another street we're looking at is Williams Drive between Eskridge Road and Arlington Boulevard. Right now there are 2 wide travel lanes and 2 parking lanes. There are sidewalks on both sides, but there are no on-street bicycle facilities. We're proposing to add bike lanes by narrowing the travel lanes and repurposing the underused northbound parking lane. We'll retain the 18 parking spaces along the southbound side. And this is a useful north-south connection, kind of running between the Innova Hospital and going north towards Merrifield Town Center. And then a little bit closer to Innova Hospital is Willow Oaks Corporate Drive, which runs between Williams Drive and Gallows Road. Today there are 2 wide travel lanes and 2 parking lanes. There are sidewalks on both sides, except on the north side between Williams Drive and Professional Center Access Road. And there are no on-street bicycle facilities. We propose to add bike lanes by narrowing the travel lanes and repurposing one of the underused parking lanes. And we would also repurpose all of the parking west of Professional Center Access Road. It provides a nice east-west connection. And then one of the places that we're considering installing a crosswalk is at the intersection of Professional Center Access Road and Willow Oaks Corporate Drive. We would have to repurpose all the parking in yellow, but we already are planning to do that to add buffered bike lanes there. And as you can see, there's no buildings on either side of this little section. So as Steve mentioned, for paving related comments such as drainage, missing signage, signal repair, walkway repair, or site distance issues due to the growth of vegetation, please feel free to submit them to the myVDOT portal at my.vdot.virginia.gov. You can also give them a call at 1-800-4ROAD. For striping related comments, such as the slides that I just showed you, you can send it to us by emailing us at dotbicycleprograms@fairfaxcounty.gov, or you can use the feedback form link in the red box on the project page, which is at the web link below. Your comments are due by May 1st of this year. All right, now we move to the question and answer portion. So we'd like to open up the meeting for those questions and comments. Here are the instructions. If you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand. It's located at the top of your screen next to the 3 dots. The moderator will enable your microphone and call on you to ask your question. When you're finished with your question, please lower your hand. Please unmute yourself when your name is called and ask your question or provide your comment. Please mute yourself after you've asked your question. If you are on the phone, press *5 to raise your hand, and and when you are called upon by the last 4 digits of your phone number, press *6 to unmute. When you are finished, please push *6 to mute yourself and *5 to lower your hand. And we can go to our first question.
Thanks, Zach. The first question is from McGregor. I'm going to allow your mic, and then you can unmute yourself.
Hello, my first name is Erin. I have a question regarding the bike lanes. I was wondering why VDOT doesn't put the parked cars between the bike lane and the car lane so that the bikes can have some protection from the moving vehicles. as well as protection from the parked cars opening out the passenger door into the bike lane. Thank you.
Steve, I think I'm going to give that to you since you're VDOT, if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, that is a good question. I guess typically the car would be away from the curb. You may have a bicyclist that's in between the curb and the car, from what you're describing. I understand what you're saying. The normal reaction for people when they park a car is to open the door, typically on the right side, because they figured there's not anyone there. So that's not something that either VDOT or the county, I believe, we typically try to endorse as one of our two or three options for on-road bike lanes. Our best option for us is to allow the car to be parked near the curb so the right door can open freely without any interruption. The bicyclist on the left side. I think we've all seen that if you're a driver, you need to look in your side view mirror and look back over your shoulder, make sure there's no one coming in a bike lane, but there's more, I guess, sensitivity to a driver to do that, looking over your left shoulder, than there typically is for people that are getting out of the right side of the car. So in practice, and I don't think this is limited to this county or this state, but even nationwide, it's typically not done that way for those reasons, human behavior reasons, if you will. I hope that answered your questions.
Thank you. The next question is from Robin. Robin, I'm going to allow your mic.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great. So I have two quick questions. My first has to do with Glade and Green Range Drive, particularly the intersection that's closest to Dogwood Pool. That is where the Capital Bike Share is, and it's a very popular station, which is fantastic. That intersection is really busy with pedestrians and the especially getting to and from the bus stops and just crossing the road to get to the pool and the apartments. And now with the bike lane, you know, I feel like that intersection will be even busier. So is there any plan to tie in Green Range Drive and Glade and connect the bike share to the bike lane better?
In terms of adding a bike lane to the bike share station?
Or some sort of crosswalk for bikes, or just a crosswalk. There's nothing there now. I just feel like there should be more safety notices because the bike share is around the corner, and it's on the left side of the street if you're facing, I don't know, depending on how you're facing. It would be an awkward transition, which is what I am saying. And I was wondering if there's any, I'm asking as you know, vice president of our homeowners association, if there could be just an extra look at the safety of that arrangement and just doing whatever is possible to make it easy for people to traverse that particular intersection. That would be fantastic. And then my second question has to do with the repaving of Green Range Drive. And I was wondering if there was time to share those plans, or should I just email about that?
So Green Range Drive will get essentially will be repaved as is. We're not proposing to add any crosswalks or bike lanes to Green Range Drive.
So I was informed by VDOT this past year that there is a crosswalk planned that they're working with FCDOT close to Dogwood Pool. And that has been requested numerous times by our community.
Yes, sorry, I can take that one. We do have a project that was funded through the additional $100 million for active transportation projects by the county, and that is in design currently for adding that crosswalk. It required adding curb ramps essentially at the entrance of the trail and across the street, and restricting the parking. So we had to do that as a separate project because of the need for the curb ramps, which is not covered as part of the paving process. So that change is coming, but it's happening as a different effort.
Okay, but it should happen. I was told in previous meetings that it was much easier to do it when the lanes were being paved and restriped. Is it happening around the same time or just eventually?
I believe it went to our design division. Actually, as VDOT might be implementing this one. We have a lot, quite a few, and I'm so sorry. I should have introduced myself. My name is Lauren Delmar. I'm the Active Transportation Program Manager, and we have a lot of projects going on, and I'm not sure exactly the status of this one. Steve turned his camera on, so maybe he can enlighten us.
Yeah. Hi, Lauren. No, I actually don't know the answer to that, but we can certainly, between us and Fairfax County, look into it. But a reason I turned my camera on was because I wanted to speak to the partnership and the tie-in with Fairfax County and the paving. I mean, typically most of our repaving comes with some restriping, but not when it starts to include putting in curb ramps on both sides and sidewalks for connectivity. Those end up becoming a separate project, if you will. So it is, like Lauren said, a separate funded project by the county. And it does take some time to do it. I'm speaking for Lauren on this case, just understanding it. If you can picture a place that doesn't have a ADA ramp on either side, and you need to put in one on both sides, there may be utilities that have to be moved first, that a gas line, a water line, or both, that they or we have to work with to have them move those first in order to build those ADA ramps. So it's a whole separate effort than a streamlined paving contract to just mill and replace paving and do striping work.
I understand. Thank you for explaining. Well, I know we're all looking forward to this project happening because visibility is a major issue in that particular section. And then I will close out my comments with a tiny request that if there's any possible way to have buffered bike lanes on Glade, that would be awesome, because I am in the, 63% of bike riders who are safety first. So thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Robin. Yeah, unfortunately, if we were to do buffered, we'd have to remove one of the 2 parking lanes, and we felt that wouldn't generate sufficient community support for the project. It's just the road isn't wide enough to do it without doing that. So, thank you.
Thanks, Robin. The next question is from Garrett. Garrett, I have allowed your mic.
Hey, thanks for this opportunity to weigh in. My name is Garrett G. I just wanted to point out really quick, because I logged into a work Teams account, that I'm calling on my personal time, but I am a county resident. I just wanted to circle back to the point made by the first commenter on parking protected bike lanes. I think there's a lot of research showing that those are significantly safer and better for reducing crash impacts to folks on a bike. I think, to your point, that there's a lot of riders in the county that are in the interested but concerned bucket, and the county really is interested in spurring more biking. I don't know, it seems like an opportunity to take another look at that option. But I think in general, to address that interested and concerned segment, I didn't hear any discussion of protected bike lanes, otherwise protected bike lanes, not just by parking, but using separation like bollards or even flex posts or planters or things that we've seen in a lot of places, including right over the border in the district. So I'd love to hear whether protected bike lanes were considered for any of these routes, and if they were considered, why they're not being put forward as the option here. Thank you.
Zach,
Yeah, apologies for my son in the back. Sure, yeah. So the paving program, the parking protected, adding flex posts, adding planters, that isn't covered by the VDOT repaving program. It's pretty scope limited to just paving streets. That we are looking to try to do more projects like you've seen in DC with parking protected and adding protection to buffered bike lanes, etc. But we don't yet have that all those details worked out. There are maintenance issues that we have to address, and there are a lot of challenges that I couldn't quickly address in the current year repaving program. So that's why we don't see any of those facilities currently in this year's repaving program.
And I'll just add that when it comes to things like the flex posts or bollards, you do see that in very urban areas like Washington, D.C. and some other cities, but and we are urbanizing, as you know, but flex posts is something that presents a big problem for us as a transportation agency. We try to limit the use of flex posts, and that's because they get run over, they get hit, they get snow plow. We have snow plowing issues. The plow blade, when it comes along, throws the snow and then knocks them all over, and then we have to replace them all. But so there is a balance between what the safety needs as well as the maintenance needs and the costs, and certainly safety is still first, but that is something that's taken into consideration.
If I could follow up on that
Sure.
really quickly. So I respect that the maintenance concern. I guess I would say the fact that cars are hitting the flex post indicates that there is the risk of vehicles going into the bike lane, and a car that hits a flex post is a car that could be hitting a person when they're biking. So just something to point out. I appreciate the challenges with the limited scope of repaving program, but would love an opportunity to think about how to think more proactively about the program going forward. I mean, y'all flagged helpfully here, like how rarely some of these secondary streets get looked at. It might be if it's 5 years or more before there's another treatment. Hopefully we can build the network that we want to see in the future, not just the network for tomorrow. But thanks for the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I will add too, Garrett, we are adding a two-way cycle track on Virginia Center Boulevard near the Vienna Metro. And that's a way to kind of show how that kind of facility can work in kind of our more suburban jurisdiction. And we're hoping to bring that online relatively soon.
And I'll just add, I don't know if there's any questions, but I mean, certainly, we live in an area where there's been 70, 80, 90 years worth of building roadways, and everything through time has been car centric. And as time has gone on over the last several years, we have been working together with the county to, certainly understand that there's multimodal needs out there and opportunities where we can to provide on-road bike lanes. They are reducing, I'll say, and that ability, as we have grown this program over the last 10 years, the number of opportunities are starting to narrow some, but we're doing our best to try to find where we can do those. As Zach just mentioned, there are projects that the county has that are cycle track projects, which are off-road facilities that provide bike lanes as well as pedestrian walking lanes adjacent to each other with some separation, but they're also separated from an actual roadway. But those become projects in themselves because they do take up more land And as you know, land's very expensive, so the projects themselves become more expensive. But hopefully through time, we'll continue to work on trying to make that better for all users.
Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett. We're gonna go over to Bruce. Bruce, your mic should be allowed now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I'm late. I had a conflict with another meeting. Is the plan for Glade going to be available online soon? It would be nice to have had it before the meeting, but is that going to be available? And then I got a follow-up comment.
Yes, we're going to post the presentation right after this meeting, or tomorrow, I should say. Sorry about that.
I regularly bike on this section, and I find it fairly comfortable right now. And if bike lanes are put in there with all the parked cars, and I apologize if this has probably been raised before, those bike lanes will be in the door zone. And so I would recommend that at least one side of the car parking, that free storage of vehicles that's taken up space for days, sometimes months, and those folks, aren't paying for that, that be used to widen the road to be able to allow protected bike lanes. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you, Bruce. Are there any other folks with questions? Please raise your hand or press *5 if you're calling in over the telephone. Great, we have a question from Eric. Eric, I have allowed your mic.
Hello, and thank you everyone for this presentation. This is a very promising. I live in around the Williams Drive and Eskridge Road area, and just had a question about that specific initiative. That intersection where the Williams meets Eskridge gets kind of congested at times, and I was wondering if there are any other plans to increase any signage to elevate some of the dangerous traffic in the area and to make it safer for bikers, because it's pretty frequent. I think a lot of cars just get stuck at the stop sign and don't necessarily know when cars are coming, if any cars are going to turn onto Williams before they. So there's a lot of congestion there and a lot of accidents. So just seeing what other things are going to happen on that in terms of signage perspective outside of the bike lanes. Thank you.
In terms of outside of so what we're proposing to do is to remove the northbound parking lane on Williams to accommodate that buffered bike lane design there. And so what that will do is when we're stopped at the stop sign, your visibility should be a little bit improved for people coming northbound on Williams if you're stopped on going southbound on Eskridge. And then we also, by adding the bike lanes and narrowing the travel lanes, we hope that will kind of encourage people to slow down. We've seen that in other places, and we think that a similar phenomenon would happen on Williams.
Okay, thank you.
All right, looks like we're going to go back to Bruce.
Yes, thanks. One quick question for Stephen Welch. Do you know if VDOT inventories or keeps track of the amount of on-street parking there is in the county? I know you have the lane miles of all the travel lanes, but do you have a sense of how much space is taken up by on-street parking?
No, I mean, that's a very complicated and constantly changing. I mean, we keep track of our assets in terms of, like, say, pavement, lane miles, bridges, structures, signals, those types of things. But on-street parking, we don't keep track of that. But I don't know if the county actually might. I don't know if they actually keep it count of that, but Zach, do you have anything to?
I'm not the parking
Yeah.
parking program manager. But I believe, and maybe Lauren, maybe you can weigh in too, but I don't think they count it either. It's probably, I mean, nationwide, there's 2 billion parking spaces and 300 something million cars. So it's, there's a lot
Yeah.
more parking
It's
spaces.
hard to figure that
cars.
ratio. I mean, I'm probably looking for the ratio, but that'd be a challenging inventory to be able to do. So
Yeah, I understand that. It would be interesting though. I mean, I can understand the Department of Transportation wants to move cars, but it doesn't seem like parking them is really part of the goal. And I know it's a huge issue, but I just wanted to briefly raise that. So thank you for addressing it.
Thank you, Bruce. We're open for any other questions. Again, please raise your hand or press *5 to raise your hand if you're calling in. We're going to go back to McGregor. You're unmute. You're there. You go.
Hi, I was wondering how wide the driving lanes are going to be on Glade Drive. I know you have to fit both school buses and public buses in those lanes. I was just curious how wide they are. Thank you.
So I don't remember exactly how wide they are today, but the minimum lane size, we have two city buses going in, or 2 Fairfax County buses or Vermont buses going in, and on both lanes is 11 feet per lane. And so with 2 parking lanes and the bike lane and the 11-foot lanes for those vehicles, they have, everything just fits.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Zach, do you want to wrap us up? And if we get another one, we can always go back to questions.
Yes, and so if you follow up questions, you think of something else, please feel free to send us a note, DOT bicycle programs at fairfaxcounty.gov. Give us a call at the phone number here, or send us some feedback in the red box as well, if you think of something else. So this concludes our meeting for the 2023 repaving program in the Hunter Mill and Providence districts. The recording of this meeting will be available on the 2023 paving webpage in the next day or so, as well as the slides that we shared with you tonight. Thank you for joining us tonight. We really appreciate your time and your thoughts and sharing and asking your questions. Have a great night, everyone.
thank you, everyone.